Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, My Hero Academia, Sand Fruit. Chapter 71. After Tamura Shigaraki's words fell, the atmosphere in the dim bar seemed a little solemn. After about 20 or 30 seconds, All for One chuckled from the screen. Forget it, there's nothing we can do about it, but it's a pity. They all deserve to die. Tamura Shigaraki said in frustration. Okay, Tamura Shigaraki, it's useless no matter how upset you are. This failure will definitely not be in vain. Try to gather the best, take your time, we can't move freely, so symbols like you are indispensable. Tamura Shigaraki, next time, you must spread your terror throughout time. All for One said calmly. Time flies so fast, and in the blink of an eye, one day has passed. Due to the USJ incident, Su Yuan and the others were suspended for one day. The USJ incident was broadcast on various TV stations, but for some reason, Shangying did not allow reporters to enter the USJ training ground for interviews. Therefore, whatever the hero says, the reporter will report it. The following continues to report that yesterday, students in the heroes department of Shangying High School were attacked by villains at the disaster training site. Based on the police investigation, we learned that the criminal group calls itself the League of Villains and they plan to kill All Might, who joined Shangying High School as a teacher this spring. Unexpectedly, this gang was hit hard by All Might, and the main culprit fled the disaster training ground in a hurry. On a large screen in a certain neighborhood, a group of people gathered around, watching the news on this side. Are these guys crazy? They plan to kill All Might. Don't they know how to write the word death? One of the citizens said. That's right, do you think you can kill anyone? All Might is a symbol of peace and will never fall. A group of lunatics seek death and dare to plan to kill All Might. When I hear the word, serious injury, I feel inexplicably relieved. Those who are called League of Villains are seeking death. Ha ha ha. At this time, Su Yuan's home. Su Yuan was lying on the sofa, watching today's news. School was closed for one day, so he decided to take a day off and not practice. His parents were as busy as usual, but after hearing about the USJ incident, he still called Su Yuan to ask for safety. After Su Yuan said it was okay, he hung up the phone hastily. At this time, Su Yuan's stomach growled a few times and he reached out to touch it. I haven't had breakfast, I'm so hungry. He stood up from the sofa and was about to clean up and go out to eat, but at this time, his cell phone rang. Looking at the mobile phone on the table, Su Yuan paused. Who is it? With that said, he walked over and saw an unfamiliar phone number on the caller ID. He hesitated for a while and finally connected. The next second, a familiar voice came from the phone. Hey, is this Baekwan boy? Su Yuan was stunned and replied, All Might. Do you have a problem with me? All Might also heard a familiar voice. After confirming his identity, he got to the point. Come to Shangying now. I need to talk to you about something. All Might said calmly. Looking for me. Su Yuan was stunned. Shangying suddenly looked for him. It must be related to what happened yesterday. After a few seconds of silence, Su Yuan replied, Are you in charge of the food? I haven't eaten yet. The Baekwan boy is really interesting. Principal Fan is in charge. All Might said. Okay, I'll be there right away. Su Yuan said as he walked out of the door. Heroic High School. Half an hour later, Su Yuan had entered Shangying High School, and a moment later, he had arrived at the principal's office. He raised his hand and knocked a few times. Is the principal here? As soon as he finished speaking, a soft voice came from inside. It's Baekwan Su Yuan here, come in. The principal said inside. Su Yuan nodded and opened the door. To his surprise, besides All Might, Izuku Midoriya, Bakugo Katsuki, Shoto Todoroki, Tokiyami Fumikage and others were also inside. Suddenly, Su Yuan had a bad premonition that these guys must have caused trouble, and as the squad leader, he came here to be punished. What did you guys do? Su Yuan looked at them and asked. Midoriya, Izuku and the others looked at Su Yuan in confusion. Seeing Su Yuan's expression, the principal smiled lightly and said, Baekwan Su Yuan, please sit down first. I have something to do with you guys today. Su Yuan hummed and sat on the sofa nearby. Do you know Shangying Big? The principal suddenly asked. Everyone looked at me and I looked at you. Obviously, They didn't know much about Shongying Big 3. I've heard of it, but I don't understand it. Midoriya Izuku replied. I'm similar to Juju. I've heard about them, but I don't know much about them. I just know that they are very powerful. Bakugo Katsuki added. As for Su Yuan's understanding of Big 3, it is almost zero. Even though he is a time traveler, when he time traveled, My Hero Academia had just reached its 3rd season. However, before he saw Shongying Big 3 appear, he was brought into this world by the cheating system. Even if he saw Big 3 play, it has been a year since and he must have almost forgotten about it. The one plot that Su Yuan still remembers is the sports festival. Whether he remembers the others or not, he doesn't think it's a big deal. Because his appearance has already produced a butterfly effect, but not knowing it is the best result. Has everyone only heard of it? The principal sitting in front suddenly said. Su Yuan also nodded along with them. The so-called Big 3 are the 3 third-year students who are at the top among the current hero students, the ones closest to professional heroes in the school. Ortate explained from the sidelines. The third-year student at the top of the heroes. Midoriya Izuku's eyes suddenly lit up when he heard this. It looks like it's worth killing. Bakugo Katsuki on the side looked excited and greedy. However, it is true that there is no possibility in his own class, so Bakugo Katsuki can only turn his attention to other classes. As long as it's not Su Yuan, Bakugo Katsuki feels that anything is possible. Don't say that, Big B is a very strong principal, the principal said with a chuckle. Our class president is also quite strong. Principal, please let me know when you can make arrangements. I want to see how far the gap between my class's first place and the school's first place is. Tokiyami Fumikage said seriously. Su Yuan on the side frowned. Asshole, what are you talking about? You're tricking me. Tokiyami Fumikage was stunned and quickly explained. No, no, no. Of course, everyone else has the same idea as Tokiyami Fumikage. They all want Su Yuan to fight Big 3 to see who is better. It's just that they didn't dare to say it, and Tokiyami Fumikage accidentally said it, and now he regrets it to death. Don't worry, you said this would happen soon. The principal suddenly added. Really? Midoriya, Izuku and the 4 of them said together. Of course. The principal replied. Principal, look, I'm working harder. I want to compete with my classmates. Su Yuan said to the principal pretending to be aggrieved. The 4 of them turned pale and said in unison. Squad leader works hard day and night, so we won't have any trouble. No trouble, no trouble. It'll be quick, just a few minutes. Su Yuan gave them a weird smile. Suddenly, at this moment, All Might on the side spoke. Okay, everyone is here, let's talk about this. Okay, all right. The principal nodded and then continued. This time I suddenly came to you because Shongying wants to train the next Big 3. As soon as the principal finished speaking, everyone's faces suddenly became stiff. What, training the next Big 3 inches? Izuku said hesitantly. In other words, do you want to choose 3 out of the 5 of us? Shoto Todoroki asked. Bakugo Katsuki smiled. This is not difficult. Among the 3, I am definitely the one. No. This time it's not 3, but 5, All Might answered. 5, yes, All Might and I have already made a selection. The 5 of you quirks have great potential. Of course, the quirks of other people in Class 1A have great potential, but for some reason, we selected the 5 of you, individual. Next, you may be pressed for time in training and harder than the other people in Class 1A. But, by the same token, you will grow faster than them. The principal said seriously to the 5 Su Yuan. After Su Yuan and the others heard this, their expressions became serious, and All Might's next move surprised everyone. I saw him, bowed deeply towards Su Yuan and the others, and said, please. Everyone, with great power comes great responsibility. Forget it, I have no objection. Su Yuan was the first to speak when he saw this scene. Immediately afterwards, others nodded. However, the third graders at the top of heroes all have the famous name Big 3, do we have one? Midoriya Izuku asked. Yes, after an agreement between All Might and I, your team is called the 5 Secret Guards. 5 Secret Guards, everyone subconsciously started reading along. That's right, the team formed by the 5 of you is called the 5 Secret Guards, the principal confirmed again. The 5 secret guards can have exclusive meanings. 5 represents the 5 of you, and the word secret means that the heroes have the 3 giants in the open, and you in the dark. The word, guard, means to defend the heroes and maintain society. Together, the general meaning is that the 5 of you secretly guard the heroes and maintain society. All Might explains the meaning of the 5 secret guards. Okay, good hockey's name. Midoriya Izuku swallowed hard, a little excited, too. This seems promising. Of course, Bakugo Katsuki was also very excited at this moment. But, Shoto Todoroki said, his face slightly serious. Everyone looked at him. With our current strength, are we capable of protecting heroes and maintaining society? Shoto Todoroki continued to ask. Of course not. All Might immediately retorted. That's why we have to train you. As soon as All Might finished speaking, the principal spoke again. Actually, I can tell you about the 5 secret guards when you go to school, but do you know why I suddenly called you here at this time? The principal asked. Su Yuan and the others pondered for a few seconds, and finally shook their heads. Because, Big 3 happens to be free this afternoon, and they can let you experience the gap. The principal said, then stood up, and then shouted outside, come in. The reason Big is separated by, is because together Fei Lu will be awaiting trial. I am speechless and even 10 BIGS will not work. The words fell. There was a click sound. 3 students wearing heroic uniforms walked in slowly, 2 men and 1 woman. And Abdi, they are the 3 heroes Big 3 who rule the top of the heroes, Tongxing Weisheng, Fluctuating Spiral Scroll, and Tianguan. They are the Big 3 at the top of the Junline heroes. Midoriya Izuku glanced at the 3 of them, and his face suddenly became stiff. But what they did next made Su Yuan and the others a little unable to do anything. Tongxing Weisheng quickly walked up to Su Yuan, smiled and said, hello, your name is Baikuan Su Yuan, right? Su Yuan looked at Tongxing Weisheng, confused, as if he didn't recognize him. I am. Do you know me? Su Yuan asked. Well, that's right. I've heard of you, so you must also know me. Tong Xingwei asked with a smile. Su Yuan nodded. Well, the principal just explained it to me. Tong Xingwei Lisheng was slightly disappointed. Unexpectedly, Su Yuan had just found out about him. Of course, soon his face was filled with joy again, and he said, it's okay, there will be many opportunities for us to meet in the future, and sometimes, maybe we will even cooperate. Su Yuan smiled. I'll ask for your advice in the future. Of course, we don't have much time to stay in Shangjiang. It is also a good thing for Shangjiang to train our Big 3 as soon as possible. Tong Xingwei said slowly. Okay, please give a brief self-introduction first. The principal said. The 3 of them nodded and gave a brief introduction to Su Yuan and the others. Then, I'll trouble you next, the principal said. No trouble. Then all the members of the 5 secret guards will come with me. Tongxing Weisheng said, turned around and walked towards the door. Where to go? Su Yuan asked subconsciously. Training ground. Tongxing Weili said without looking back. When Su Yuan heard the words, training ground, he had already guessed what would happen next. Wait a moment. At this moment, Su Yuan suddenly spoke. As soon as everyone saw it, their eyes turned to Su Yuan. What's wrong, Baikuan boy? All Might asked in confusion. Didn't you say you were in charge of the food? I haven't even eaten breakfast yet, Su Yuan said calmly. The principal laughed awkwardly with All Might. I almost forgot if you didn't tell me, the principal said as he handed the lunchbox on the table to Su Yuan. ... Training course. This time is a very simple competition. They just want to see how strong you are. All Might stood in the middle and explained to Su Yuan and the others. As soon as All Might finished speaking, Tongxing Weisheng stood up and said calmly, let me come first. All Might nodded. You can attack at any time. I am good at single combat and group fights, Tongxing Weigingsheng said confidently. Passage is not born, quirks is penetration. When he was a boy, he once drowned and was saved by a professional hero S. From then on, he determined to become a hero S. However, the penetration of the unborn quirks is a very difficult to control quirks, and the slightest carelessness will tear the body in half. This is also the reason why Tong Xingwei gave up the idea of having his father become a hero. Due to the difficulty in controlling quirks, he was an inferior student when he was a child. But he always faced life with an optimistic attitude, and with persistent efforts, he finally honed his skills and became one of the Big Three of Shangying's 3 strongest students in the school in his senior year. It is definitely not an accident that he has achieved such an achievement today, but everything was obtained with his sweat. Who is this guy looking down on? Bakugo Katsuki suddenly had veins on his forehead erecting after listening to what Michiko Mitsuki said. In the palm of his hand, sparks popped out. The next moment, he jumped up and quickly ran towards Tong Xingwei. In midair, Bakugo Katsuki was about to launch a move, but the clothes on Mr. Tsutsumi suddenly fell to the ground. Bakugo Katsuki was stunned and stopped what he was doing. Mr. Tongxing immediately realized it, quickly picked up his pants, put them on, and said, sorry, it's a little difficult to adjust my quirks. But, you can attack me at any time. Cut. Bakugo Katsuki was now very close to Michiko Mikio. He took 3 steps and merged with 2 steps, activated quirks, and hit him with a palm. Boom. Bakugo Katsuki's hand directly penetrated his body, and he frowned. Is it also a penetration? It's a bit like Su Yuan's. Really, can he also penetrate? Aren't his quirks sand? Tong Mingsheng said with a faint smile. Bakugo Katsuki paused, retracted his hands, and then activated his explosive quirks again, exploding in the direction of Mitsuru Mikio. There was a boom. Thick black smoke slowly rose. Just when Bakugo Katsuki wanted to relax, Michiko Mitsuru suddenly jumped out of the black smoke. Bang! Sound. Tsuchimi punched Bakugo Katsuki in the abdomen. PFF'd. He spit out a mouthful of saliva, then lay down directly, covering his stomach. It's so powerful. I killed Kachan in one blow. Midoriya Izuku said in a deep voice. Yes, he is indeed a figure at the top of the king's heroes. Tokiyami Fumikage added. Glancing at Bakugo Katsuki on the ground, Mr. Tsutsumi chuckled and said, oh, I'm sorry, it was a bit harsh. After all, he set his sights on Midoriya Izuku, Shoto Todoroki, and Tokiyami Fumikage. Do you want to serve one by one, together, or wait until Baekwan Su Yuan finishes eating? Midoriya, Izuku and the others looked at each other and finally decided that the 3 of them would go together. That's it, Midoriya Izuku said as his feet flashed with green lightning. Whoa! With a sound, he quickly ran towards Tong Xingwei. Tong Xingwei, on the other hand, stood there with a smile on his face. With a boom punch, it was clear that Midoriya Izuku also missed. At this time, Shoto Todoroki stepped on the ground, and ice quickly covered the ground. In the blink of an eye, it had frozen the position where Mitsuru Mikiro was standing. But obviously, the unregenerated people were not frozen. Whoops! Tong Xingwei disappeared directly from their sight. Where have you gone? Shoto Todoroki suddenly frowned, and the next moment, he punched him in the abdomen. Don't quirks penetrate? Why are they teleporting? Are they plural quirks? Tokiyami Fumikage paused. Before he could react, Tong Xingwei also punched him. Seeing this scene, Midoriya Izuku's spirit immediately became tense. A sentence flashed through my mind. If it were Su Yuan, what would he do? However, at this moment, Tong Xingwei disappeared directly from his perspective. At this moment, his whole body began to tense up. Where will it appear? Midoriya Izuku's mind began to spin at high speed. If he appears, he will definitely appear behind me. Midoriya, this thought flashed through Izuku's mind, and the next moment, his body turned around subconsciously. Sure enough, Tong Xingwei jumped out directly from the ground. Here we come. Midoriya Izuku activated the one for all quirks, wrapping colored light particles around his arms, increasing his speed and attack power. Boom! Following the punch, Tong Xingwei was slightly startled, but he still did not panic. The result was obvious. Midoriya Izuku's attack once again penetrated his body. His expression suddenly changed. Bang! With a sound, Mitsuru Michiru's fist also hit Izuku Midoriya's abdomen. The next moment, he cast his eyes on Baekwan Su Yuan, who was eating next to him, and said with a smile, your teammates have all fallen. You are the only one missing. Hearing this, Su Yuan glanced around and looked at Midoriya Izuku and the others who were lying on the ground holding their stomachs. Suddenly, he was stunned, and a thought flashed through his mind. Fast, too fast. The four of them collapsed before he even took a few bites of the meal. If that's the case, there's nothing we can do. We can only eat after we discuss each other. Su Yuan smiled bitterly and stood up slowly. After walking dozens of steps, we arrived at the center of the training ground and came face to face with Mr. Tong Xing. Senior, please be gentle. After all, I don't want to eat until you wait. Su Yuan said jokingly towards Tongxing Wirensheng. Hearing this, Tongxing Weisheng also smiled slightly. The principal wants you to be the leader of the 5 secret guards. You must be stronger than them, otherwise, they will not be convinced. What? Su Yuan frowned and continued to mutter, no. I didn't expect the school to trick me again. I have to talk to him after the beating. Tongxing Weilisheng on the side frowned when he heard Su Yuan say this kid is really an alien. Indeed, before Su Yuan traveled through time, his goal was usually to do the least work and get the highest salary. Now here, it belongs to both the squad leader and the group leader, and they have not given any benefits, so Yin Yuan is definitely not the king. Okay, Baikuan Su Yuan, you have to be prepared, I'm going up. Tongxing Weisheng said with a slight smile. Su Yuan nodded. Yeah. Tongxing Weisheng's strength is not weak, he has to pay attention to it, especially his penetrating quirks. As soon as Su Yuan finished speaking, Tongxing Weilisheng suddenly disappeared from his sight. Then, in the blink of an eye, he appeared directly behind Su Yuan. So weak, there are flaws all over the body. Coming to Tongxing Weisheng behind Su Yuan, this sentence came to mind. Looking at the other 2 heroes and one of the 3 heroes not far away, he couldn't help but sigh. Alas, it seems like it's just a punch thing again. I thought he could give us a little surprise, he said with a slightly disappointed look on his face. Before they came, they had already listened to the principal's statement about Su Yuan. This time, they came to test Su Yuan's strength out of strong curiosity. But, there is nothing we can do about this. After all, Tongxing Weilisheng is too strong. Tian Luo Huan added from the side. Suddenly at this moment, All Might on the side spoke. You are all wrong. It's not that Su Yuan didn't realize it, but that he felt that Tongxing Wei's attack was ineffective against him. What? Wave Luo Wan and Tian Nao Huan were stunned for a moment, staring in Su Yuan's direction. At this time, when Tongxing Weilisheng thought he was about to hit Su Yuan, suddenly, his fist hit the sand directly. Tongxing Weilisheng was suddenly startled, jumped back quickly, and left some distance away from Su Yuan. Su Yuan also turned around at this moment and said with a smile, if your speed cannot exceed my sand defense, you will not be able to touch my body. Let me just say, the principal clearly said that Baikuan Su Yuan is a very powerful person, but I underestimated you just now. Tongxing Weisheng said calmly. As soon as he finished speaking, Su Yuan disappeared with a swish sound. The next moment, he appeared directly on the side of Tongxing Weisheng and kicked him. So fast. This speed directly shocked Tongxing Weisheng. He quickly activated his penetrating quirks, otherwise, he would be kicked by Su Yuan. Obviously, the result was that Su Yuan's foot penetrated his body. A smile appeared on Tongxing Weilisheng's face, he punched Su Yuan in the abdomen with his hand. But, the next moment, he was confused, because, his fist directly penetrated Su Yuan's abdomen. Seeing this scene, not only Tongxing Wei was confused, but even the remaining 2 big 3 were also confused. Penetrated, isn't this a common quirks? The wave spiral scroll said in horror. How could this happen? Are his quirks not sand? Could it be that he has multiple quirks and copied the quirks of Tongxing Wei Li? Tian Guhuan also had no clue. So I say, don't underestimate him before the results come out. His quirks may seem very simple, but the results are the most complicated. Even as his teacher, I only know a little bit about him. All Might said in a deep voice. At this moment, whether it was the Wave Luo Wan or the Tian Nao Huan, they had to rejudge this person named Baikuan Su Yuan. At this time, Tongxing Weisheng felt oppressed for the first time in so long. Not only does it have fast defense, but it also has the same penetrating quirks as its own, which is just cheating. Tong Xingwei Li Sheng slowly raised his head and looked at Su Yuan, who was smiling towards him. An ordinary smile made Mr. Tongxing feel a chill on his back. The next moment, he quickly withdrew his hand from Su Yuan's abdomen. Immediately afterwards, he jumped back and somersaulted, completely separated from Su Yuan. The penetrated hole is slowly recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Sure enough, just like that classmate said, you also have penetrating quirks. Tongxing Weisheng said to Su Yuan while lifting his pants. Su Yuan was stunned for a moment, unwilling to explain too much. If you think so, then that's it. Thanks to the principal for saying that you are a monster freshman, it makes me feel very troublesome. Tongxing Weisheng said with a frown. Of course, what he said was not modest, but true. He thought that Su Yuan had plural quirks. A sand, and a penetration, coupled with his weird moves, made Tongxing Weisheng feel troubled everywhere. Moreover, apart from these two, there was another one who also shocked Tongxing Weigingsheng. That was Su Yuan's physical skills. Judging from the blow just now, he was definitely not weaker than himself. What has this guy experienced? This thought flashed through Tongxing Weisheng's mind. Monster freshman, should I be happy that the principal praised me? Or should I be sad? Su Yuan said with a bitter smile. None of this matters anymore, let's continue. Tongxing Weisheng said calmly. That's right, Su Yuan replied. As soon as Su Yuan finished speaking, Tongxing Weisheng disappeared immediately, and his pants were still slowly falling to the ground. Behind him, there was a bang. Apparently, Tongxing Weisheng's attack was defended by the sand shield. Bang bang bang. Immediately afterwards, there was a continuous sound of impact in the surrounding area. This guy's speed is faster than before, Su Yuan muttered without moving. As soon as he finished speaking, the speed of Tongxing Weisheng in the next moment was already faster than the defense speed of the sand shield. A punch was thrown at Su Yuan, and Su Yuan immediately stretched out his hand to defend himself. However, the result was obvious. Su Yuan's hand directly penetrated his hand. Although Su Yuan was stunned for a moment, he did not panic, because, on the contrary, he could not touch him, and he could not touch himself. The next moment, Tongxing Weisheng repeated the previous action and hit Su Yuan directly in the abdomen with an uppercut. However, the result was still the same as last time. It penetrated directly, but Su Yuan was not affected at all. Is this really a headache? There's no point in doing this. Tongxing Weisheng had a slight look of helplessness on his face. Really? Su Yuan said, raising his fist, and suddenly his arm was covered with a layer of pitch black. If it's anything like what I think, then you're going to be in even more trouble. After that, he hit the head directly towards the unregenerate. Tongxing Weisheng froze on the spot, grinned and said, don't forget, I also have penetrating quirks like you. ABBD, just expect what you want. As soon as Su Yuan finished speaking, there was a bang and he punched Tongxing Weisheng in the face. Suddenly, he spun twice in midair. He just fell to the ground and rolled over. Why? Why didn't Tongxie avoid it? Uzumaki Razan was stunned. The face of Tian Huan next to him was also very solemn. Wei Lisheng encountered a difficult person this time. If I guessed correctly, the reason why he didn't hide just now was because he activated his penetrating quirks. He thought that Baikuan Su Yuan's attack would penetrate through his body, but unexpectedly, Baikuan Su Yuan attacked his entity. Wow! How on earth did he do it? Uzumaki Razanaki was now full of curiosity. This is a very serious question. He can attack the entity that leads to Weisheng, which means, the quirks leading to Weisheng have no effect on him. How on earth did he do it? Go to the ghoul and start. The speculation started. I see. At this moment, Uzumaki Razan suddenly spoke. Tian Huan looked at her and asked, what do you know? Before, Tongshui's penetration was effective for him, but until Baikuan Su Yuan's hand turned black, he was able to hit Tongshui's entity, so I guess it has something to do with that. Uzumaki Razan reasoned. Tian Naohuan glanced at Su Yuan's hand and nodded in agreement. Teacher All Might, may I ask if there is any secret in Baikuan Su Yuan's hand? Wave Razanaki asked All Might, who was standing aside. I have to say that this question really stumped All Might. Although I claim to be his teacher and make a false master, I don't know much about him than others. This, Ha ha ha, actually there is no secret hidden. I heard from him that this is his quirks, a move that can enhance both defense and attack. All Might said slowly. Is that so? Well, I think so. All Might continued. Then I'll ask him later. Uzumaki Razan said with anticipation. At this moment, Tongxing Wiley was born over there. He quickly got up from the ground. Taking advantage of this time, he quickly picked up the pants not far away and put them on. One side of his face was swollen, and now he was very confused. I clearly used quirks just now, but why did he hit me again? This question kept appearing in Tongxing Weisheng's mind. You know, he has never encountered this kind of situation since he was a child. Only today did he know that when he activated quirks, someone could still hit him. After muttering to himself, he turned his attention to Su Yuan and frowned. What is this kid's background? Tongxing Weilisheng muttered. I don't know why, he always had a bad premonition when Tongxing Weilisheng fought with Su Yuan. At this time, Su Yuan slowly raised his right hand, and dozens of sharp sand spurs suddenly appeared in front of his right hand. In the meantime, Su Yuan flicked his hand, and dozens of sand spurs flew directly towards Tongxing Weisheng. In the past, Tongxing Weisheng would definitely not even be able to hide, because as long as he activated quirks, these attacks will penetrate through your body. However, since he had just been punched by Su Yuan, he did not dare to be careless. If these sand spurs could hit him, his life would be lost if one of them failed. At this moment, Tongxing Weilisheng jumped and dodged. Bang bang bang. Dozens of sand spurs all hit the ground. At this moment, Su Yuan waved his hand again, and spider web-shaped cracks suddenly appeared on the ground near Tongxing Weisheng. The next second, it turned into grains of sand, and then piled up, trying to trap Tongxing Weisheng. When Tongxing Weisheng saw this scene, he frowned and quickly activated his penetrating quirks. He fell directly into the ground, and immediately jumped up again from behind Su Yuan. However, as soon as he got off the ground, he was confused again, because Su Yuan was flying in midair. The second he was stunned, countless sand arrows flew towards him. Tongxing Weisheng could only use the quirks he penetrated to escape again. Wei Lisheng was completely suppressed. A look of shock appeared on Tian Nahuan's face. Yes, that one named Baikuan Su Yuan is so interesting. He can actually fly using his quirks. Uzumaki Razanaki added. It's so shocking. Quirks, who were not in conflict with each other at first, were forced to be in conflict with each other. He is the only one who completely achieved quirks clasping hands. Lai Naohuan said in a deep voice. I've thought of a lot of questions to ask him. Beluo Luowan showed an expectant expression. All Might watched quietly from the side without saying anything. The shock Su Yuan gave him was already paralyzing. At this time, in the corner of the training ground, Midoriya, Izuku and the others were all confused. I thought Su Yuan was just very strong before, but I didn't expect one of the three heroes, Ichi, would be completely at a disadvantage against him. Shoto Todoroki said solemnly. Thinking of his father Endeavor, he had previously asked him to surpass Baikuan Su Yuan. At that time, he also felt that with his quirks, it should not be difficult. But, let's think about it, is this comparable? Not at all. Is this really the freshman who entered Class 1A with me? I feel like he is completely overpowering the people at the top of King's Landing heroes. Tokiyami Fumikage said. Suddenly, at this moment, a loud voice echoed throughout the training ground. You win. Hearing this, everyone present was stunned and felt a little surprised. Unexpectedly, Tongxing Weisheng actually admitted defeat. Wei Lisheng actually gave up on his own initiative. It's incredible, Tian Luohuan muttered. For some reason, he also had the urge to go up and compete with Su Yuan. It's really unexpected, but this new student is really interesting. Boilo Luowan said. Su Yuan quickly descended to the ground and said, admit defeat. If I'm not wrong, you haven't used all your strength yet. Tongxing Weilisheng quickly put on his pants and said to Su Yuan, if I guess correctly, you haven't tried your best yet. Su Yuan didn't say anything, because according to the fact that Tong Weilisheng said, no one used their full strength in this competition. Seeing that Su Yuan acquiesced, Tongxing Weisheng smiled again. You are very strong as a monster. When you say this, I take it as a compliment from you. Su Yuan smiled. Hearing this, Tong Xingweilisheng smiled slightly at Su Yuan and then walked in the direction of All Might. At this time, the four of them, Midoriya Izuku, walked to Su Yuan's side. Although I don't want to admit it, I can't help it. The reality is this. You are really powerful, Kitagawa Su Yuan. Shoto Todoroki said with admiration. That's right, the opposite person is one of the three giants who rule the top of the heroes. Needless to say, there is no need to say much about your strength. What about you, Su Yuan? You are a first-year freshman. If word spreads, I'm afraid the entire heroes will be shocked. Izuku Midoriya said rationally. However, if this news really spreads, not many people would believe it. Tongxing Weisheng is one of the three heroes, so his strength will naturally not be doubted by others. Suddenly, a junior official was defeated by a first-year student. Who would believe such a ridiculous thing? The answer is, very few, except those who witnessed this competition at the scene. I feel like we were so embarrassed. We were knocked down with just one punch. Tokiyami Fumikage suddenly interjected. As soon as these words came out, they undoubtedly opened the scars of the other three people, and the three of them rolled their eyes at Tokiyami Fumikage at the same time. The result seems to be a bit tragic. Tongxing Weisheng smiled and said to the wave spiral scroll, Tianguan, and All Might. This competition, how should I put it? We all thought that he was not very strong as a freshman, but the result was that he was incredibly strong. Tian Luohuan said calmly. Tongxing Weisheng scratched the back of his head and said with an awkward smile, to be honest, when I knocked down four of them with one punch, I really underestimated the last one. However, whether I underestimate him or not, I know that I can't defeat him. His quirks seem to have multiple quirks, and they are too flexible to use. Listening to Tongxing Weisheng's words, Huo Luowan and Tian Nao Huan were silent for a few seconds. Ba bang bang. Wave Razanaki suddenly patted Tongxing on the shoulder and said with a smile, Tongxing, don't think too much, your strength is not weak, but he is too strong. Yes, Baekwon Su Yuan is Null's professional hero and All Might's apprentice. It is only natural that he is ridiculously strong. Tian Naohuan comforted him. All Might on the side felt embarrassed when he heard this. After all, he had put all his thoughts on Midoriya Izuku. For Su Yuan, it was only an occasional taijutsu session. You don't need to comfort me. I know the specific situation better than you. You can understand it after you discuss it with him. Tongxing Weisheng said calmly. As soon as he finished speaking, All Might's voice sounded from the side. No need, your mission has been completed. The plan was originally to let the 5 secret guards experience the strength of the 3 heroic heroes. However, the result was too unexpected. If there are no temporary modifications, Su Yuan alone can defeat the 3 giants at the top of Junline heroes. The impact would be quite large. Why, All Might? Tianguan asked. Yeah, that's not the original plan. Uzumaki Razan also asked. Because, I suddenly remembered that there are still some things that need to be explained to them. After all, there is not enough time. Or Tate randomly found 10 reasons and stuffed them. Boiling Luowan pouted and said, that's such a pity. We both want to learn from him. Next time, All Might said with a smile. By the way, All Might, as for the course we agreed on before that the 3 of us will tutor them, let's cancel it. For the 4 of them, Baekwon Su Yuan is enough. However, as for following the activities of experiencing professional heroes, we can come together. Tongxing Weisheng said slowly. But, you have to trust him. He can do it. However, after chatting with him for a while, I think it will be a bit difficult for you to convince him to help the other 4 people train. Tongxing Weisheng said with a smile. Hearing this, All Might frowned. He had already thought about this problem, which meant that he had never mentioned that Su Yuan should be the leader of the 5 secret guards. Afraid of his direct rejection. You're right, this is indeed a big problem. All Might said with a bitter smile. At this time, Su Yuan and the others walked over slowly. Seeing this, Bo Luowan hurried forward. How awesome are you? You actually hit the pass. What are your quirks? Plural quirks. And the pair of wings made of sand that suddenly appeared behind you, there is a time limit. Joy. Waves Luowan actually asked Su Yuan dozens of questions in one breath. Su Yuan's face was slightly gloomy. Shui. Senior sister, Stop, stop, stop. Listening to Su Yuan's words to stop, Beluo Luowan said, and looked at Su Yuan with widened eyes. Su Yuan looked at the boiling Luowan and couldn't help but smile bitterly. He knew that if he didn't say something casually, he would not be able to move the Buddha statue of the boiling Luowan. Let me explain my quirks first. Anyway, there is nothing to hide. However, my quirks are not the plural quirks as my senior said. While speaking, Su Yuan slowly raised his arm, and immediately after, the entire arm transformed into sand to form a sand blade. As you can see, my quirks are made of sand and can make various weapons, or sand the ground, or even be used for defense. To put it bluntly, my quirks are almost omnipotent. Whether it's defense, attack, or assistance, I'm pretty good at it. Uzumaki Razanaki listened, his eyes flashing. That's a really powerful quirks. By the way, Tongshe has already activated his own quirks to penetrate him. How did you hit him? Hearing this, Su Yuan pondered for a few seconds and said, actually, I'm not too clear about this either. Through your battle, I found that the penetration from the front is useful for you, but once your arm turns black, his penetration has no effect on you. What do you have on your hands? Is it a secret? Beluo Luowan looked at Su Yuan expectantly. Secret. Su Yuan smiled and then covered his right hand with jet black, and said, this is not a secret. This is the ability obtained by the evolution of my quirks. So far, I have only found the attack and defense enhancements, and also concoct some, quirks entities like seniors. Su Yuan said seriously. It must be said that when he saw the expression on Beluowan's face, he was probably convinced. Quirks evolve. Everyone present caught the key point of Su Yuan's words. What does quirks evolution mean? Midoriya Izuku asked curiously. Yes, Su Yuan, we are in the same class. If there is a way to become stronger, you have to tell us. Tokiyami Fumikage replied. Similarly, All Might on the side was somewhat interested in this topic. Su Yuan rolled his eyes at Tokiyami Fumikage and said, don't think about it, there is no quick progress to become stronger, you need to do it step by step. Also, as for Abeb, the evolution of quirks roughly means that when your quirks develop to a certain extent, the changes that occur, well, I think it can be understood this way. Oh, everyone nodded. If there is nothing else, All Might, we will leave first. Xingbed Shisheng said. All Might hesitated for a moment and nodded. After receiving the permission, Tongxing Weisheng's eyes fell on Su Yuan. Next time, I hope we can compete as a team. Tong Xingweisheng said. Yes, that will definitely be interesting, don't you think so, Baikuan Su Yuan? Waves and Risaki said expectantly. Team competition. Midoriya, Izuku and the other four seemed less excited than the three heroes. Yes, in the name of the three giants versus the 5 secret guards. Tongxing Weisheng said slowly. Su Yuan smiled bitterly, neither agreeing nor rejecting. Let's take a look when we have time. Okay. Tongxing Weisheng also responded readily, then we will leave first. After that, they walked towards the gate of the training ground, and their figures slowly disappeared from the sight of Su Yuan and the others. Not long after Tongxing Weisheng and the others left, All Might coughed dryly. Okay, now it's time to announce something important. Important things. Midoriya, Izuku and the others looked expectant after hearing this, but Su Yuan had a bad premonition. An excellent team requires an excellent leader. So, here, I decided to let Su Yuan serve as the leader of the 5 secret guards. Do you have any questions? All Might asked. I'm okay. I don't have a problem either. Agree. I agree. I disagree. Su Yuan quickly retorted. All Might, I have no problem joining the 5 secret guards, but you want me to be both the leader and the squad leader. I'm afraid I can't bear it. I will tell Mr. Aizawa when I get back, squad leader, and ask him to be replaced by someone else. As for this squad leader, you must be a good one, because only you can subdue the other 4 people. All Might said calmly. What does the leader need to do? Su Yuan asked. It's very easy. From now on, they will only have absolute obedience to you. All Might said. Thinking about it carefully, Su Yuan felt that it was not a loss. If he obeyed absolutely, then he would not have to do many things in the future. Okay, I'll just take it for granted. Su Yuan smiled. However, the unimportant lessons in the future will be hard work. Aizawa Shota and you will train them together. All Might smiled slightly. Time flies. In a blink of an eye, it was already night. After All Might left the training ground, he had an important meeting with the principal and others. Of course, the meeting was about League of Villains. Office. The principal was exhausted from the day. He sat paralyzed on the chair and asked feebly, All Might, are you ready to tell him about the leader of the 5 secret guards? The principal asked. I've told him and he agreed. What, you agreed so easily? The principal said in disbelief. Of course, there are other things I haven't told him. I'm afraid he will run away if I tell him. All Might said calmly. The principal frowned and then said, however, there is no other way. Let's trap him temporarily. While saying this, the principal opened the drawer, took out a stack of A4 paper filled with words, and handed it to All Might. What is this? All Might took the A4 papers in confusion. Application materials for exchange students with country M, the principal explained. Exchange students. When he said the words, exchange student, All Might's expression obviously changed a lot. Yes, the principal replied calmly. The number 1 school in country M, or an ordinary school? All Might continued to ask. The principal looked at All Might, pondered for a few seconds, and finally spoke word by word. Academy of the Brave. The Academy of the Brave is different from other schools. Although it is in country M, it is not included in the rankings. Students are all admitted as exchange students, but there are only exchange students who have gone but not come. As for the admission requirements, it doesn't matter how weak you are now. As long as your quirks are well developed, you can enroll. Academy of the Brave. All Might muttered, then looked at the principal with a serious face and continued. Is it that academy that claims that as long as you can enter, you will be rewarded with a hero? All Might said calmly. Well, although that school only appeared in recent years, the people who came out of it have undoubtedly become very powerful, and they have also undergone a great transformation. I was just thinking about letting the 5 secret guards go somewhere to be exchange students and gain experience, the principal said. However, what worries me is that the safety index of country M is very low and the crime rate is very high. I have heard bad rumors about the Academy of the Brave before. All Might said with a serious face. Did the rumors you mentioned refer to a student's report about the college? The principal asked. All Might hesitated for a few seconds. That's probably it. It's been too long and there's no image left. It is true that there were scandals in the Brave Academy. However, I checked and found out that the specific incident was an error. The students reported it to the academy after they came out because the training there was too hard. The principal said slowly. Really, but for safety's sake, I want to follow him. All Might said. As for safety, I have already considered it. I will send a teacher to follow you, but you have more important things to do. The principal said calmly. In this case, this is the only way it can be. The next morning. After one day of suspension, Yuan went to the station to wait for the bus after breakfast as usual. However, due to the USJ incident, Yuan was in the news again, making him even more famous. Young man, you weren't injured the day before yesterday. A soft voice sounded next to Yuan. Yuan was stunned for a moment, and when he heard the voice, he saw that it was an old woman who said this. Are you talking to me? Yuan confirmed. Certainly. Thank you for your concern, I'm fine. Yuan smiled. Since the old lady started talking to me, other people also came to talk to me. Well done, boy, you will definitely be an outstanding professional hero in the future. Yes, you are All Might's apprentice, the heir to the symbol of peace. Brother, come on. Along the way, Yuan was yelled at to cheer up. With great difficulty, he finally got off the tram. At this moment, he could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Undoubtedly, Class 1A at this time was all talking about what happened in the USJ incident the day before yesterday. Regarding the matter of the 5 secret guards, except for the members of the 5 secret guards, no other students know about it yet. The USJ incident has increased our reputation a lot, Kaminari Denki said with excitement. Yes, I heard that TV channels take it very seriously. Isn't this a matter of course? After all, the Hero's department, which has numerous professional heroes, is attacked by villains, and society will definitely pay more attention to it. Jiro added. However, Kitagawa Yuan is so awesome that he turned the entire USJ into a desert. It's so cool. Hiroshima Jiro looked enthusiastic. Yes, if Kitagawa-chan hadn't been behind, we wouldn't have known what we would have faced. Asui Suyu said, recalling the thrilling scene at that time, he still felt a chill in his back. Crack. At this time, Yuan walked into the classroom first, followed closely by Aizawa Shota. Aizawa Shota came to the podium, glanced around, and found that everyone was here. Then he said, "Okay, everyone is here. Let me talk about two things. The first is class ball re-election. Re-election of squad leader." As soon as Aizawa Shota said these words, everyone was stunned, and their peripheral vision couldn't help but cast on Yuan, thinking that he had made some mistake. Well, Baekwan Yuan has a lot of things to do and is not suitable for the position of squad leader, so I will give you 10 minutes to choose another one. Aizawa Shota said calmly. Call. Everyone sighed. Just now, they all thought that Yuan was suddenly dismissed from the position of squad leader because he made some big mistake. However, even so, they also felt it was a pity. In this class leader election, neither Yuan nor Midoriya Izuku raised their hands because they knew that they did not have time to be the leader. In the end, Ida went from deputy squad president to squad president, while Yaoyorozu Momo became the deputy squad president. Okay, the squad leader thing is finally settled. Let's talk about the second thing, that is, the Hero Sports Festival is coming soon. Aizawa Shota said calmly. The Hero Sports Festival is one of the large-scale events in our country. Top heroes from all over the country will also come to watch it for the purpose of discovering talents. After Aizawa Shota finished speaking, some people in the class began to look a little solemn. Wait a minute, Aizawa-sensei. We were invaded by villains and suddenly held a sports festival or something. Is there really no problem? Yes, if you were attacked. Aizawa Shota was silent for a while and said, the school seems to want to hold a sports festival to show the outside world how indestructible UA's crisis management system is. Furthermore, I heard that the security force this time will be strengthened to 5 times that of previous years. More importantly, the sports festival is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Why was it cancelled just because it was a villain's? Chapter 81. After everyone heard this, they watched Aizawa Shota become silent. Although they still had some worries in their hearts, since the school arranged it this way, there was nothing they could do about it. Do you understand? Aizawa Shota asked everyone. Yes, everyone responded. Okay, the class meeting is over. Aizawa Shota said calmly. Time flies by in a hurry. Due to some special circumstances today, Class 1A does not have a basic course on Heroes in the afternoon. As the pointer reached the end of school, heavy footsteps suddenly sounded in the corridor. In just a few minutes, a group of people crowded directly at the door of Class 1A. What happened? Uraraka Ochako looked at them in confusion. Then, as the squad leader of Class 1A, he stepped forward and said politely, "Excuse me, what do you want from Class A? Are you stupid? What else can you do? They came here suddenly, of course to investigate the enemy's situation." While talking, Bakugo Katsuki had already walked in front of them. Listening to Bakugo Katsuki's words, many people remembered what Aizawa Shota said about the sports festival in the morning. In an instant, they seemed to understand something. Bakugo Katsuki glanced at them, and then said in a deep voice, "But in my eyes, it is completely in vain for you to do this kind of thing. Get out of here, you two fools." As soon as he said this, Bakugo Katsuki had no reaction, but as for Ida and the others, their expressions were extremely stiff. Don't label someone you meet for the first time as a sidekick, Bakugo Katsuki. Hearing this, Bakugo Katsuki frowned, turned around and shouted, "I want you to take care of it." Suddenly, at this moment, a man with a purple afro squeezed in among the crowd. And he is Hitoshi Shinso, a first-year general course student at UA. Although his quirks had met the requirements for admission to the Heroes course, his poor physical fitness resulted in his failure in the practical technology project during the entrance exam. It was only after he understood this that he signed up for the general course, but he was always worried about not getting into the Heroes course. I wanted to come over and see what kind of characters the rumored Class A is, but it turned out that I couldn't believe it. Are all the students in the Hero-esque department like this? It's really disappointing to see a guy like this. As he spoke, Hitoshi Shinso put his pants in his pockets and looked even more arrogant than Bakugo Katsuki. Who are you? Bakugo Katsuki said solemnly. I'm just a general subject student. There are many people in this school who were assigned to general subjects and the other two subjects because they didn't pass the Hero-esque subject. Did you know? Hitoshi Shinso asked Bakugo Katsuki Road. None of my business. Bakugo Katsuki sneered. Hitoshi Shinso smiled. Indeed, it doesn't have much to do with you, but it does have a lot to do with Class 1A. The school has given us opportunities in other subjects. It is said that we will be based on our performance in the sports festival. Based on our performance, we will reconsider whether to include us in the Hero-esque category. What goes and comes naturally. Speaking of the latter words, Hitoshi Shinso's tone was obviously much louder, and he also revealed a hint of arrogant smile. By the way, you just said to detect the enemy's situation. At least I'm here today to declare war, even if it's the Hero-esque department. If you get too carried away, be careful of being overturned by us in an instant. While saying this, Hitoshi Shinso and Bakugo Katsuki looked at each other. At this moment, a voice came from behind Bakugo Katsuki. Declaring war, Hero-esque Class A. Just you, are you worthy? Bakugo Katsuki was stunned when he heard this, and Yuan had already appeared behind him. Haha, Hitoshi Shinso grinned. It seems that all the Hero-esque department are really like this. The words fell. With a pop, Hitoshi Shinso fell directly behind him, and the group of people behind him all fell to the ground. Taking action. Class A is beating someone. As expected, those in Class A are all a bunch of lunatics. Go and tell the teacher quickly. Swish, 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 sounds. The crowd size was directly reduced a lot. But there are still a lot of people watching the show. Kitagawa-kun, it's wrong to hit someone. Iida quickly came out to stop him. I was beating a human. He was barking here and there. I thought he was a dog. Yuan sneered. I am from Class B next door. You kid, your words are a bit too much. Suddenly, from behind, a man shouted again. Another one. Asshole, your tone is outrageous. Leave it to me, Kitagawa-kun. Iida quickly stood up. After all, he has now become the monitor. He had to think about the entire class. If Yuan misbehaved, it would be possible for them to be hospitalized. But if you do this, you will be derelict in your duty. It's up to you, Yuan said casually. He was too lazy to deal with this kind of person. After all Might told himself at noon that in the afternoon there are classes after school. Hitoshi Shinso covered his stomach and climbed up from the ground. At this moment, he felt a little depressed. He never expected that Yuan would take action directly. Is this horse riding something done by humans? It's possible, Hitoshi Shinso thought to himself. Next time you encounter something like this, don't ask why, just tell him the truth. Got it, Yuan said to Bakugo Katsuki standing aside. Bakugo Katsuki frowned. Apparently, Yuan was telling him this as the leader of the 5 secret guards. That's what I was waiting for. Anyway, if something happens, you will be watching. Bakugo Katsuki sneered. I'm not afraid either. Anyway, if something happens, the squad leader will be there to take care of it. Yuan also grinned. Hey, you can't teach people like this. At this moment, Iida almost collapsed. While explaining to other classes, he explained the truth to Yuan. However, Yuan hurriedly left Class 1A on the grounds that he was in an emergency. According to what All Might said at noon, after school in the afternoon, they went to the training ground to meet. When Yuan and the others arrived at the training ground, All Might had been waiting there for some time. Why are it just you two, Green Valley Boy and the others? All Might said to Yuan. It's at the back, it should be there soon, Yuan said. All right, All Might said calmly, then took out 2 pieces of paper in his hand, handed one to Yuan, and the other to Bakugo Katsuki. You guys take a look first and ask me if you don't understand anything. Yuan took it and looked at the top line of big words, exchange student application, and couldn't help but be stunned, and asked All Might. Quote. Exchange student. Bakugo Katsuki was also stunned. Yes, I will be an exchange student at the Brave Academy in Country M. All Might explained. Are you kidding? Bakugo Katsuki said with a stiff expression. At this time, Midoriya, Izuku and the others also arrived at the training ground. All Might casually handed each of them a copy of the paper in his hand. All Might, what is going on? Why are you suddenly going to Country M to be an exchange student? Midoriya Izuku asked in confusion. Yeah, this is too sudden. Shoto Todoroki also said. Everyone, listen to me first. All Might waved his hand to signal them to quiet down. Hearing this, Su Yuan and the others became quiet and looked at All Might quietly. As for the exchange students, the principal fought for it for you. You may be a little unfamiliar with the Brave Academy in Country M. However, judging from the results, the Brave Academy's ability to cultivate talents is higher than that of heroes. The moment you come out of the Academy of the Brave, you are destined to be transformed. But you also have to think about it. This process may be like hell. No matter how chaotic it is, I hope you can persevere. As for when to report to the Academy of the Brave, the time set by the school is after the sports festival. All Might explained to them slowly. Reborn. Bakugo Katsuki said these 4 words, his face became a little solemn. Hell, it sounds so scary. Midoriya Izuku swallowed hard and said. Su Yuan is also very unfamiliar with Brave Academy, and this is the first time he has heard the name of this school. However, I heard from All Might that in terms of cultivating talents, it is higher than Shongying, which means that this is a very good academy. Maybe after going there, the 5 secret guards can really get a new life. How long will you stay in Country M? Su Yuan asked All Might. The Academy of the Brave is a little different from other formal schools. Exchange students have a minimum of 3 months and a maximum of 1 year. They can come back once a month. All Might said calmly. It doesn't take too long. It can make a person completely reborn. Su Yuan replied. The reason I'm telling you today is to prepare you, but before that, you still have to deal with the sports festival. Understood. Everyone responded. Today's lesson is to test your limits. All Might said aloud. Limit. Upon hearing these 2 words, the 5 of them flashed their eyes. What kind of test method? Bakugo Katsuki asked. Of course, this training is very suitable for him. Same question. Shoto Todoroki asked. Among the 5 of you, the Baekwan boy is undoubtedly the strongest in strength, so he will help you 4, and I will do it myself for him. Of course, Baekwan Su Yuan probably won't be able to complete it in 1 day, so we divide it into groups, 2 with him and 2 with me. In this way, he will be the only one left, and then wait to continue tomorrow. All Might explained. Everyone nodded. So, Mr. All Might, as for how the groups should be allocated? Bakugo Katsuki asked. Group. Well, it's up to you. All Might replied. As soon as All Might finished speaking, Bakugo Katsuki and Shoto Todoroki shouted almost simultaneously, I choose Kitagawa Su Yuan. Undoubtedly, the 2 of them don't care much about testing their own limits. What they care about is how big the gap is between themselves and Su Yuan. This is probably something Bakugo Katsuki has wanted to try ever since he met Su Yuan. Okay, Bakugo boy, Todoroki boy, and Kitagawa Su Yuan, and Midoriya boy and Tokiyami boy follow me. While speaking, All Might cast his eyes on Su Yuan and gave instructions. Don't be too heavy-handed, or you won't be able to attend class as long as you can tomorrow. Su Yuan nodded. I know it well. All Might nodded and followed Tokiyami Fumikage and Midoriya Izuku to the other side. I'll go first. Bakugo Katsuki was the first to stand up. Shoto Todoroki nodded. If you want to test your limits, just release your quirks to your heart's content. Su Yuan said calmly. You don't need to tell me, I naturally know that this sparring is the battle I have been looking forward to for a long time. Bakugo Katsuki said, and sparks began to appear in his palms. Since this battle is to test Bakugo Katsuki's limits, Su Yuan doesn't intend to use elementalization. Of course, he can't do whatever he wants like the villains he fights against. After all, he cannot control the degree of danger in many of his moves. If he is not careful, he may die. Thinking about it, Su Yuan couldn't help but frown and had a headache. He himself doesn't like this kind of battle very much, because he has to pay attention to how light and heavy his attacks are, and not to use any fatal moves. Just when Su Yuan was lost in thought, Bakugo Katsuki's voice came from the other side. Are you ready? I'm going to come. Bakugo Katsuki roared with a grin. Just come over here, Su Yuan replied. 767. Then I'm going to do it. As soon as Bakugo Katsuki finished speaking, he quickly ran towards Su Yuan. Compared with before, his speed was much faster, but also, during this period of time, his cultivation did not fall behind. Bakugo Katsuki jumped up, black smoke crackling from the palm of his hand. Big bang, he shouted loudly, put his hands together, and in the center, a golden light began to bloom. Go to hell, Bakugo Katsuki shouted loudly with a grin on his face as he pushed the light in his hand directly towards Su Yuan. Su Yuan frowned and knew a lot about Bakugo Katsuki's temper. Anyway, when it comes to fighting, go to hell, has almost become his mantra. However, for this kind of attack, Su Yuan didn't even need to dodge. I saw him slightly raising his right hand, and a wall of sand suddenly rose up on the ground. The result is obvious, because Bakugo Katsuki didn't have time to hit him with a big bang and divert the direction. Can only hit the sand wall. There was a boom. Black smoke flew everywhere along with loose sand, and soon after, thick black smoke began to fill the surrounding area. After the loud noise, the surrounding area suddenly became quiet, with only the sound of sand falling to the ground. Suddenly, at this moment, Bakugo Katsuki kicked Su Yuan directly from behind. Su Yuan still stood still and reached out to grab his feet. The impact caused Su Yuan's feet to move slightly to the ground, but the next moment, Su Yuan directly pulled Bakugo Katsuki's feet, threw him around, and fell directly to the ground. There was a boom. The ground cracked directly. PFF'd. Bakugo Katsuki spat directly. However, his movements were very smart. He was afraid that Su Yuan would give him a last hit, so he immediately jumped up with his feet. Then it landed smoothly on the ground. This really hurt me. Bakugo Katsuki moved his whole body and said towards Su Yuan. Su Yuan sneered and waved his hands towards him, and suddenly rows of sand spurs on the ground flew directly towards Bakugo Katsuki. Drink. Bakugo Katsuki kept waving his hands to blast these sand spurs. Boom boom boom. Black smoke kept coming out, and sand kept flying around. I've wanted to teach you a lesson for a long time, Bakugo Katsuki, and I just have an opportunity today. Su Yuan said calmly. Really, I'd be delighted. Bakugo Katsuki grinned. As soon as he finished speaking, Su Yuan moved at high speed and came directly to the side of Bakugo Katsuki. Although Bakugo Katsuki noticed it, his speed was basically at a loss. Seeing his pupils dilated, Su Yuan kicked him away. Boom, sound. Bakugo Katsuki rubbed against the ground a few times, and finally hit a rock before stopping. Smoke and dust billowed. Ah! With a roar, in the smoke and dust, Bakugo Katsuki blasted directly out of the ground. Black smoke was crackling on his hands. When he got close to Su Yuan, he quickly moved his hands and continued to bombard Su Wu. But his movements were still too slow, and he blasted 40 or 50 times in a row without hitting Su Yuan once. Beads of sweat began to appear on his forehead. Quirks are very powerful, but your physical skills are not very good, you are too weak. Su Yuan said, his right hand directly covered armament hockey. Then, he quickly punched him directly in the abdomen. With a sound of bang, Bakugo Katsuki flew backwards. My Hero Academia in this world, if there are no quirks, no matter how strong your physical skills are, you will not be able to defeat those who have quirks. However, if you have quirks and practice physical skills, it is a completely different concept. Even if someone like All Might doesn't use quirks, his attack power is terrifyingly powerful. With the addition of quirks, the power is even more powerful. He is now able to exert this terrifying power even in his weak period. One can imagine how powerful All Might was in his prime. PFF'd. Bakugo Katsuki got up from the ground, vomited a mouthful of blood, and his face was a bit stiff. Although he knew that his strength was far different from that of Su Yuan, he did not expect that the difference would be to such an extent. The person he fought with Ishimura and the person he is now are completely two different people. Gritting his teeth, Bakugo Katsuki looked at Shoto Todoroki in the distance and frowned again. That guy's strength should be similar to mine. After muttering something, he turned his eyes to Su Yuan in front of him again. We can only try to see if that move can hurt him. Bakugo Katsuki muttered, then ran wildly, followed by jumping. In midair, he closed his hands. Suddenly, the black smoke coming out of his hand formed a vortex. Immediately afterwards, the vortex became larger and larger. Durian Cannon. Big Bang. Bakugo Katsuki said as he struck at Su Yuan. At this moment, on both sides of Su Yuan, a pair of huge sand hands suddenly rose directly from the ground. Moreover, the speed was very fast. In the blink of an eye, Shisho swatted Bakugo Katsuki in his hand like a mosquito. Immediately afterwards, there was a bang, and a big hole suddenly exploded in the palm of the sand palm. Thick black smoke slowly overflowed from the hole. A light breeze blew. In the black smoke, Bakugo Katsuki's body slowly emerged. At this moment, the sportswear he was wearing was in tatters. Many parts of his body were red, and bright red blood slowly flowed out from his arms and face. With my current strength, can't I even hurt you at all? Bakugo Katsuki felt slightly helpless at this moment. Use whatever moves you have. Su Yuan raised his head and said to Bakugo Katsuki standing on top of the giant hand. Hearing this, Katsuki gritted his teeth again. Don't get me wrong, Bakugo Katsuki, I don't mean to look down on you. You and I are in different situations and have created different people. Su Yuan said in a deep voice. What Su Yuan said is true. The reason why he said this was to test his limits. I know, Bakugo Katsuki replied. It's good to know. If not, I suggest you stop fighting. It won't be of much help to you. Your current quirk's development is not strong enough, and your physical skills also need to be strengthened. However, I don't think you need to worry too much about this. After all, All Might also said that after the sports festival, we will go to the academy that cultivates brave men. Su Yuan said slowly. Okay, let's not fight. I already know the gap. I'll save you some time and let the other half of your face suffer. After Bakugo Katsuki said that, he jumped up and landed on the ground. Su Yuan nodded, then cast his eyes on Shoto Todoroki not far away, and said, It's your turn. Shoto Todoroki nodded and walked towards Su Yuan. Use your quirks to your heart's content, don't be afraid of accidentally hurting me. Su Yuan told Shoto Todoroki. Shoto Todoroki nodded. Then, I'm going to do it. Del. As soon as Su Yuan finished speaking, Shoto Todoroki raised his foot and stepped on the ground again. As the sound of zzzz sounded, the ground was directly frozen by the ice, and immediately after, 10 piles of ice spikes grew larger and stabbed towards Su Yuan. Shoto Todoroki. I know that composite quirks, possessing ice and fire, are indeed cool and powerful quirks. Su Yuan muttered. The movement is the same as Shoto Todoroki's. As soon as he steps on the ground immediately begins to relax. Immediately afterwards, the sand like a waterfall suddenly rose and crashed into the ice. There was a boom. The entire training ground shook. At this time, on the other side of the training ground, Midoriya Izuku had just received a backlash from One for All and was able to catch up with him. As soon as he fell to the ground, All Might didn't even have time to say that he didn't adjust One for All enough. The ground began to shake. Immediately afterwards, their eyes couldn't help but cast towards the other side of the training ground. Sand, ice. This is a duel between Todoroki boy and Kitagawa boy. All Might said calmly. What a spectacular collision, Tokiyami Fumikage said in a deep voice. Yes, Su Yuan's quirks and Shoto Todoroki are both cool and capable quirks. Midoriya Izuku said slightly enviously. Shoto Todoroki's strength should be ranked second among the current 5 secret guards, one Tokiyami Fumikage said. Second, Bakugo boy is not weak either. If he is compared to Todoroki boy, I think it is a 50-50 tie. But even though they are second, the number 1 is too far behind them. All Might said. Listening to All Might's words, the 4 words Baikuan Su Yuan suddenly flashed in his mind. I remembered that we met at the seaside park a year ago, and I thought we wouldn't have many interactions. Unexpectedly, he not only became his classmate, but also became his team leader. Yeah, at that time, I'm afraid All Might didn't expect that he would grow so fast. Midoriya Izuku said while lying on the ground. All Might smiled awkwardly. He really didn't expect that when he first competed with him, Su Yuan's physical skills were still very poor. But now, Lee lies compared to him at that time, he is a completely different person. Let's take a rest first and watch their battle, All Might said. Okay. At this moment, sand and ice are constantly colliding. At the collision point, ice cubes and sand continued to fall to the ground. As for the current situation of the two of them, Su Yuan's breathing was still steady, but Shoto Todoroki's breathing was obviously starting to become rapid. What's worse is that half of his body is slowly covered with a thin layer of water. The reason for this is that Shoto Todoroki's quirks are half cold and half burning. The right side of the body can create cold air, and the left side can create flames. The range of influence and temperature are unknown, and it can freeze the entire building in an instant. It can also incapacitate a large number of villains with one blow, making it very powerful. The disadvantage is that you cannot use the same ability continuously, otherwise it will cause frostbite or burns. The reason why Shoto Todoroki is unwilling to use his burning ability is because his father raised him as a tool to surpass All Might. His mother was only used as a tool for quirks, improvement by his father, so in Shoto Todoroki's memory, his mother was always crying and called your left half ugly and poured boiling water on Shoto Todoroki's face. Therefore, he is very repelled by his father's behavior in his heart, and is unwilling to become a tool for him to satisfy his own desires, so he does not easily use the burning ability of his left hand. All in all, Shoto Todoroki had a terrible childhood. Boom. The collision between sand and ice has been going on for a long time, and the surrounding areas on both sides are filled with ice slag mixed with sand. At this moment, Shoto Todoroki's condition is getting worse and worse. The ice covering the body on one side is getting thicker and thicker. After hesitating for a moment, Shoto Todoroki decided to stop here, otherwise, he wouldn't be able to hold on for long. After deciding, he quickly ran to the side. Immediately afterwards, the next second, the sand rushed towards the place where Shoto Todoroki originally stood like a waterfall. Gone. Su Yuan was stunned for a moment and stopped attacking. After scanning the surroundings, Shoto Todoroki's figure soon appeared in Su Yuan's sight. Looking at the cold breath he exhaled, Su Yuan frowned. As for Shoto Todoroki, he still knew a little bit. You are going to use one ability to deal with me, Su Yuan said in a deep voice. Shoto Todoroki didn't say anything, which was his acquiescence. I don't care why you don't use the other half of your ability, but what All Might wants us to test is the limit. Do you know what the limit is? Su Yuan looked at Shoto Todoroki expressionlessly and asked. Shoto Todoroki frowned. I understand. But, Abej. You are you, and your father is your father. Are you living just for your father? Listening to what Su Yuan said, Shoto Todoroki's heart was touched. Now, as the leader of the 5th Secret Guard, I order you to use all your strength to attack me. Su Yuan shouted. Shoto Todoroki gritted his teeth. Yes. As soon as he finished speaking, a raging fire burned directly on his left side. The ice covering the right side of his body melted directly. In the blink of an eye, his body returned to normal. Ah! Shoto Todoroki stretched out his right hand and shouted in the direction of Su Yuan. With a boom, a ball of fire spurted directly over. Whoa! A pair of sand wings appeared behind Su Yuan, spread their wings and flew into the air, dodging the fire easily. Seeing this, Shoto Todoroki quickly launched flames into the sky. At this moment, Su Yuan did not dodge, but froze in place. However, the sand wings behind it quickly grew in size, and eventually the airflow caused by the flapping of the wings directly fanned back the flames. Boom! Shoto Todoroki frowned. What? He actually jumped back. As he spoke, he quickly dodged to the side. But after just a few steps, Su Yuan appeared directly in front of him, and at this moment, he was waving his dark fist and hitting him. Shoto Todoroki's pupils shrank violently, and he stomped the ground as fast as he could. Brush, an ice wall rose directly, but the next moment, only a bang was heard, and the entire ice wall was shattered. The fist was still the same as Su Yuan's budget, and it hit Shoto Todoroki directly. However, What surprised Su Yuan slightly was that Shoto Todoroki only took dozens of steps back after being hit, but his steps were still steady. It seems that there is a little difference between you and Bakugo. Su Yuan grinned. While developing quirks, I also paid great attention to physical fitness. Shoto Todoroki replied. Really? Su Yuan said, covering armament hockey with both hands, and then he jumped directly, and in the blink of an eye, he came directly in front of Shoto Todoroki. Shoto Todoroki's face was a little stiff. It's faster than before. As soon as he finished speaking, Sus fists punched him 10 times in the abdomen. PFF'd. Shoto Todoroki spat out a large mouthful of saliva, and then he flew backwards and fell heavily to the ground. Then, can't get up. It's over, it's a heavy blow. Su Yuan was startled and ran over quickly. After helping Shoto Todoroki up, Su Yuan smiled bitterly. It's okay, I accidentally hit my hand hard. Shoto Todoroki covered his stomach and frowned. I can't die. Continue. Shoto Todoroki quickly shook his head. Forget it, I already know my own limit. That's okay, Su Yuan said calmly. On Su Yuan's side, Shoto Todoroki and Bakugo Katsuki are fine. As for All Might, Midoriya Izuku has 2 legs, and Tokiyami Fumikage is fine. There are still 2 weeks until the opening of the sports festival. During these 2 weeks, All Might decided to let Su Yuan and the 5 of them come to the training ground to train after school. Of course, other people are also working hard for the sports festival in 2 weeks. 2 weeks is neither long nor short. Soon, the opening day will come. At this time, Shongying High School was crowded with reporters. Inside, there are stalls selling things. Colorful fireworks bloomed on top of Shongying High School. The security check for entry is too cumbersome. A female reporter frowned as she looked at the long queue of people going through the security check. The man carrying the camera smiled bitterly and said, there is nothing we can do about it. After all, the hero has just been attacked by villains before. Moreover, there are even people who are critical of the school's holding of the sports festival this year. When the female reporter heard this, a smile suddenly appeared on her face, and she said, isn't this a very good thing? Generating heated discussions equals an increase in ratings. This year's focus is indeed Class A of the Hero's department. Seeing the female reporter's expression, the man couldn't help but laugh stiffly. At this time, the security check had already been carried out. Inside. Please give me a piece of takoyaki. Mount. Lady's eyes were fixed on the takoyaki being grilled, and her saliva was almost drooling. Standing behind her was her partner, Jungle Kamui. When the takoyaki boss heard this, he looked up and said in amazement, wow, isn't this MT? Lady. Mount. Lady swallowed her saliva and did not follow the takoyaki boss's words, but continued, no green seaweed. Okay, 1 portion, right, 500 yuan. The takoyaki boss quickly got busy and handed it over to MT. Lady in a few seconds. Mount. Lady was startled when she heard 500 yuan, and then she quickly put on a seductive and aggrieved look and said, well, I don't have any cash on my hand. When the takoyaki boss saw this, he immediately exhaled hot air and said with a blushing face, okay. I'll give you a free order. Upon hearing this, MT. Lady's attitude changed completely, and she immediately took the takoyaki, thank you. Mi Lin Shenwei, who was standing aside, said speechlessly, don't you have any self-respect? It is said that the school has invited professional heroes from all over the country this year. Mount. Lady said while eating takoyaki. Yes, originally we wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to find talents, but we actually took over the security mission, so we had to put it aside for now. Jungle Kamui returned. Performing such a mission is boring. I wonder if there are any students in Class 1A this year that I like. Mount. Lady said with some anticipation. I heard that Endeavor's son is studying in Class 1A this year. This year's first grade sports festival should be quite exciting. Jungle Kamui continued. Yeah, at this moment, in the lounge of Work A class. Bang, sound. Aizawa Shota quickly opened the door, glanced around, and his eyes dimmed. Huh, have you seen those 5 from Baekwan Su Yuan? Aizawa Shota said slightly anxiously. No, Mr. Aizawa, we still want to find you. I haven't seen the 5 of them 3 days ago. Iida quickly stood up and asked. Those guys don't think the sports festival is tomorrow. It's really a waste of time, Aizawa said with a frown. Teacher, what are they doing? Yaoyorozu Momo asked in confusion. Aizawa Shota thought for a few seconds. Then he returned and said, they are preparing. After the sports festival is over, they are going to rush overnight to become exchange students at the M-Country Brave Academy. What? There is no doubt that everyone only knows now that Su Wu and the others are going to be exchange students. Exchange student? No way. Are these the 5 who asked for leave? Do you know about the Academy of the Brave? No. Never heard of it. Watching their discussion, Aizawa Shota said, now is not the time to discuss this. We must find these careless people quickly. With that said, Aizawa Shota turned around and walked out. Just as he was about to talk about All Might, he saw All Might walking toward the lounge with Su Yuan and the others. Suddenly, the anger in my heart rose. All Might. Seeing Aizawa Shota's expression, All Might smiled awkwardly and said, no. I'm sorry, Aizawa-kun, we are already here as fast as we can. Aizawa Shota glanced at Su Yuan and the others, and said, go in quickly and rest. It's about to start. Okay, teacher. When Su Yuan and others went to rest, Aizawa Shota asked All Might, did you just finish training? Hearing this, All Might smiled. Don't worry, they have rested for 5 hours. 5 hours. You are too messy, All Might. I know the Brave Academy is tight, but training like this will be counterproductive. Aizawa Shota said in a deep voice. Don't worry, this year's Class 1A will definitely be more exciting than Class 1A in history. All Might revealed a confident smile. Aizawa Shota glanced at All Might out of the corner of his eye, and he knew that this year's first grade was particularly dazzling. This is also the first time in history that the principal has established a team from the first grade. Even without you having to tell me, I know that the strength of this first-year class will definitely surprise many people. Aizawa Shota said calmly. After hearing this, All Might smiled and did not continue to discuss this topic with Aizawa Shota, but said, the strength of the 5 of them has grown faster than I expected. I estimate that when they come out of the Brave Academy, they will definitely surprise us. Aizawa Shota did not pick up the topic after hearing All Might's words. Let's discuss this topic later. The sports festival is about to begin, and we should prepare well. Class 1A Lounge. The sound of exclamation suddenly stopped. That's amazing, you guys. Workers. The first exchange student who was selected by the principal in the first grade. However, this seems to have taken away more than half of the combat power of our class. Yaoyorozu Momo said with a serious face. Yeah, I wonder what kind of ghosts came from Country M. Iida said in a deep voice. This exchange student of ours is a bit special. There are no people from their side. Su Yuan explained. No one's coming. Everyone was stunned again. What else do you call an exchange student? That's right. How long is the term for exchange students? I heard from them that it can be as fast as 3 months, or as slowly as a year. Among them, I go back to school once a month. Su Yuan explained. Just when everyone was about to ask something, President Mike's voice suddenly came from the radio. This means that the sports festival is about to start. Su Yuan, please put on your sportswear quickly, the opening is about to begin. Iida ordered. Su Yuan nodded. At this time, on the field, the big screen suddenly lit up, and President Mike's figure appeared on the big screen. As soon as he came out, the audience shouted enthusiastically. The entire cold field was directly ignited to the extreme. Audiences, hordes of media people, this year, you guys' favorite high school students are going on a rampage. The Hero Sports Festival is about to begin. Are you ready? As he said that, President Mike paused for a while, followed by a loud shout from the audience. First grade competition area, students enter. As soon as he finished speaking, in the passages in all directions, first-year students, whether they were from the Hero S department, the General Department, the Management Department, or the Support Department, slowly walked out. President Mike scribbled the introduction to all the audience. After a while, the entire first-grade class gathered together. In front of them was a wooden platform. And standing on top of the ring is the teacher of Harrowing High School, 18-year-old Hero S. Wu Yi. I saw her swinging the whip in her hand casually on the ring, and then said, the contestants swear an oath. As soon as Wu Yi spoke, there was no doubt that many viewers couldn't hold it back and started shouting excitedly. Teacher Wuya, what kind of costume is that? Hiroshima Ajiro said with a slightly red face. It's true that they are Jin's heroes, but is there really no problem in being a high school teacher? Kaminari Denki added. However, one thing is undoubtedly that the most excited among these students is Minoru Mineta from the Heroes department. His saliva was almost flowing out. While sucking the saliva, he gave a thumbs up and praised, "Great, it's really great." Seeing these students talking about each other, Wu Yi, who was above, frowned and shouted loudly. Silence, player representative, IA Baekwon Su Yuan. After everyone heard this, everyone who knew Su Yuan turned their attention to Su Yuan. Hitoshi Shinso, I heard that you were beaten by that boy. A man standing next to Hitoshi Shinso asked. None of your business, Hitoshi Shinso replied coldly. No, the man then laughed and continued. I heard that that guy didn't have a very good character. I heard that he was the former squad leader of Class 1A. He did something wrong later and was fired. So, don't be too grudgy. After all, it's normal for a young man with this kind of problem to do such a thing. Yes, Shinso-kun, I also heard that the people in Class 1A are all lunatics. During the competition, we have to be careful of those lunatics. Another woman said. Hitoshi Shinso ignored them and turned his attention to Su Yuan. As for Su Yuan now, he is confused. He doesn't understand what the hell is swearing, and no one in the West tells him what to say. Hey, what are you going to say under the oath? Su Yuan said to Yaoyorozu Momo on the side. Hearing this, Yaoyorozu Momo was stunned for a moment, and then replied, just say something. Really? Yeah, Yaoyorozu Momo replied. Don't you understand this? Jiro Kyoka on the side couldn't help but ask after hearing what Su Yuan said. Su Yuan smiled awkwardly, the expression on his face was a bit rich, and he didn't reply. The main reason was that there was no scene in his memory of anyone swearing an oath. Seeing Su Yuan's expression, Jiro Kyoka and Yaoyorozu Momo couldn't help but cover their mouths and laugh. This was the first time he saw Su Yuan's funny expression in such a long time. To take an oath is to say the word oath, and then talk about your feelings. Yaoyorozu Momo explained. Baekwon Su Yuan, please come up quickly. Wu Yi urged from the top of the ring. Okay, come right away, Su Yuan said, walking to Mike Fung on the top of the ring. He glanced at all the first-grade students and coughed a few times. Swear, you work hard, if you win, I will lose. Su Yuan said calmly. As soon as these words came out, there was no doubt that the whole audience, whether it was students, spectators, or professional heroes, exploded. Who is this guy? I'm riding a horse, and my tone is so disgusting. You're so arrogant. You can be lawless just because you think you're All Might's apprentice. I heard he's pretty good. Let's make him suffer a little while we compete. I agree, this guy is totally worth it. Auditorium. You are indeed All Might's apprentice. You are very confident. However, aren't you a little too confident? Such a blind approach will only cause more trouble for yourself. You're right, if I guessed correctly, his next game would not go so smoothly. Well, how can I put it, if the strength is absolutely suppressed, then it doesn't matter. But today, his opponents are not only other classes, but Class A is also his opponent. Professional hero S over there. All Might, your apprentice seems to be very energetic. One of Shongying's staff said in a teasing tone to All Might who was standing aside. That's for sure, also, what he said is true. All Might said in a deep voice. Teacher Shongying just smiled. Anyone who takes this seriously is a person with a negative IQ. ... After Su Yuan finished speaking, he walked down. When Su Yuan returned to his position, Wu Yi shouted loudly again, okay, it's like this, let's start quickly. As he spoke, the big screen began to rotate, and soon after, the first item of the sports festival was about to come out. The first event of the year, that's it, obstacle course. With that said, Wu Yi began to explain to them the rules this time. There are a total of 11 classes participating in this exam. The course goes around the outside of the sports ground, with a total length of about 4 kilometers. Our school has always used freedom as its selling point. As long as it is within the track, no matter what method is used. Okay, now that the rules have been explained, everyone should take their places. As soon as he finished speaking, Su Yuan and the others came to a huge gate. Wait for the countdown to begin. Obstacle race. It's a bit traditional, but let's make do. Su Yuan muttered to himself. He already understood the rules clearly. As long as he stayed on the track, any method could be used. There is no doubt that this project is really like a duck in water for Su Yuan. When the countdown reached 0, Wu Yi shouted, "Start." With a click, the door opened directly. Countless people swarmed directly towards the gate. Behind the gate is a large tunnel of about 20 meters. In the blink of an eye, many people are basically stuck in the tunnel. And at this moment, a surprising scene appeared. An ice bridge hung over the tunnel, and Shoto Todoroki ran freely. As soon as the game started, Present Mike provided commentary. Okay, let's explain. Class A classmate Shoto Todoroki released quirks at the beginning, walked out of the tunnel in the blink of an eye, and temporarily won the first place. Following him was Bakugo Katsuki from Class A. He used Shoto Todoroki to create an ice bridge and quickly slid out of the tunnel. He got the second and temporary second place. The third place is still Class A, Midoriya Izuku. He used repeated horizontal jumps above the tunnel to avoid the crowds and successfully exited the tunnel in temporary third place. Wow, what is that? Shoto Todoroki's moment was robbed, and the person who snatched the first place is also Class A, Kitagawa Su Yuan. It's so shocking. He actually caught his quirks, grew a pair of wings, and jumped directly through the tunnel to grab the first place. This is simply cheating. However, this is not a foul. Because he did not leave the track. If the classmate who comes back can grow a pair of wings, it is okay. After hearing Present Mike's words, many people looked up and looked at Su Yuan flying quickly in midair. Many people who didn't know Su Yuan were dumbfounded at this moment. It's true, that guy has a pair of wings on his back. What are his quirks? It's so perverted that he can still operate it like this. With this special code, does it still count as a foul? Didn't you hear what Present Mike said? As long as you don't leave the track, you can grow a pair of wings behind your back and fly over. After the man heard this, he stopped talking. To put it bluntly, he was jealous of others, and Tuan Wei was begging Su Yuan like this. It seems that Class A is very energetic. It started less than a minute ago, and most of the people currently in the front are from Class A. Shinso-kun, we have to work harder. Yes, the principal said he would reclassify us into the Hero S class based on our abilities, so we have to work harder. Hitoshi Shinso frowned. To his surprise, Class A had all mastered their quirks very well. Su Yuan encountered the first obstacle less than a minute into his flight. And this obstacle is the imaginary enemy with 0 points during the entrance exam. As Su Yuan met and Present Mike explained, the sound rang again. Okay, we encountered obstacles as soon as we came up. The first thing that appeared was the first difficulty of Robot Hell. However, as soon as Present Mike finished speaking, Su Yuan launched a sand arrow without stopping. In an instant, all the imaginary enemies were wiped out, and even a compound was blown up on the ground. It's incredible. Baekwon Su Yuan from Class A used his quirks to kill all the imaginary enemies in an instant. Listening to Present Mike's explanation, the audience became extremely excited. At this moment, except for the members of the 5 secret guards who continued to run, everyone else froze in place. Kitagawa Su Yuan, forget it like this, why haven't Midoriya, Izuku and the others been training together for a while? They seem to be alone. Yaoyorozu Momo's face was slightly stiff. After all, the 4 of them, Midoriya Izuku, jumped into the smoke and dust the second after the explosion. Yes, I also feel that they are too random. Jiro Kyoka said with a slightly solemn expression. Don't be stunned, we are about to be overtaken by many people. Uraraka Ochako shouted from behind. Hearing this, Yaoyorozu Momo nodded, quickly stepped forward and started running forward. It's so amazing. It didn't take long for Baekwon Su Wu from Class 1A to be 10 steps away in an instant. The 4 following are still Shoto Todoroki, Bakugo Katsuki, Midoriya Izuku, and Tokiyami Fumikage from Class 1A. Present Mike shouted. The first place is simply overwhelmingly strong. Yes, not only is quirks great, his physical fitness and judgment are also outstanding. He's All Might's apprentice after all. That's awesome. Yeah. The audience began to talk a lot. And at this moment, Present Mike suddenly shouted loudly again. What's going on? Baekwon Su Yuan, who is ranked first in Class 1A, suddenly landed in midair and landed on the ground. Moreover, the ranking will soon be overtaken by the 4 people from Class A behind him. Yes, just as Present Mike said, Su Yuan landed on the ground. Because he felt that it was too boring to fly all the way to the end. After gaining recognition, Bakugo Katsuki, Shoto Todoroki and their goals began to change again. Before, when Yue first came, he just wanted to crush Izuku Midoriya, and then surpass Su Yuan in the back. But since he knew it was impossible to surpass Su Yuan, he had given up and decided to continue crushing Midoriya Izuku. The change in Midoriya Izuku is also very scary. He was afraid of Bakugo before. But now I can speak freely, and in terms of strength, it's hard to say who is stronger and who is weaker. As for Shoto Todoroki, during this period of time, he also opened up his heart. He lives for himself, instead of living for his father. However, one thing is forget it, all 4 of them have ignored Su Yuan. The reason is very simple, because Su Yuan's strength is too abnormal. If anyone defines him as an opponent, your mentality will definitely jump. The 4 of them quickly passed by Su Yuan. They glanced at Su Yuan from the corner of their eyes, but didn't say anything. Tens of seconds later, a group of people gradually appeared in Su Yuan's sight. A smile appeared on Su Yuan's face and he said, "Okay, a simple obstacle course is not very interesting. Let me add a little difficulty for you." While saying this, Su Yuan hit the ground with his palm, followed by an invisible force that spread rapidly. The next moment, the ground started shaking like tofu. Sand swamp, Su Yuan said calmly. The ground on the track, about 200 meters away, almost turned into loose sand in just a short moment. What's going on? Baekwon Su Yuan from Class 1A, A section of the track turned into a desert. Is it to make it more difficult for the students behind? This is so much fun. Present Mike shouted. As soon as these words came out, there was no doubt that Class A or other classes exploded. No way, that guy Su Yuan actually turned a section of the track into sand. Jiro Kyoka said with a look of shock. With his approach, it will never be as simple as just turning the racetrack into a desert. Yaoyorozu Momo analyzed while running. In other words, there will definitely be some tricks on the desert road. Uraraka Ochako added. Although everyone doesn't know much about Su Yuan's strength, they still understand some of his behaviors and practices. If you simply turn a section of the track into a desert, it will not have much impact on the subsequent candidates. So, it's hard to guess that there is definitely something fishy about the desert road. That guy Baekwon Su Yuan is too much. He is not a gentleman at all. We are also in Class A. Minoru Mineta complained. I think we should burn incense if he achieves this level. Kaminari Denki followed behind, teasing. Indeed, a section of the track had just been turned into a desert. In Kaminari Denki's eyes, that was Su Yuan's hand. That seems to be true. Minoru Mineta thought for a few seconds before replying. Desert section of track. It seems like this is the desert section created by the guy from Class A. A man stopped and said, looking at the desert section in front of him. I'm afraid that guy is not a fool. How will building a road section like this hinder us? As soon as he finished speaking, another man took steps and entered the desert area. Etc. By the time these 2 words were heard, the man's feet had already stepped into the desert. Just when he wanted to continue to lift his foot and take the second step, he found that his foot could no longer be pulled out. For a moment, the man showed a shocked expression. Immediately afterwards, he turned back to the man and said, "Brother, please pull me quickly." The man smiled and said, "Sorry, it seems I have to thank the guy from Class A, because the obstacle he designed can withstand many competitors. Brother, I will take the first step." As he spoke, he used the tools around him and his quirks to get through this desert section. And more people came here later. Some quirks were good and could easily cross this desert area, but they still stopped many people here. There were also many people who couldn't make it, but they all tried their best, and the result was that they were all stuck on the desert road. Abed. Undoubtedly, those who were trapped yelled at Su Yuan. "Asshole, that guy is a lunatic." Yeah, it's so abominable. I really want to teach that guy a lesson. Like him, it's probably a foul. It's definitely a violation, using quirks to privately renovate the road section. But, Mr. Wu Yi didn't say that this is not allowed, and if he committed a foul, it would be terrible. Present Mike would have said it already. When everyone heard this, they immediately turned pale and looked at the person who said this. Hey, the man laughed awkwardly. I'm joking, this guy really got stabbed. Pipe. It seems that the obstacle designed by Baekwon Su Yuan from Class A stopped many people. However, there is already another thing to be announced. That is, people have returned to the stadium. And this one is Shoto Todoroki, who is catching up from behind, the second one is Bakugo Katsuki, and the third one is Midoriya Izuku. With Present Mike's commentary, the audience in the stadium went crazy again. The atmosphere in the whole place was extremely heated. Tens of seconds later, people returned to the stadium one after another. Although Su Yuan stopped to create obstacles, he still caught up with Tokiyami Fumikage and took 4th place. At this time, the audience seat was at the top. Where's that guy Aizawa Shota? The head teacher of Hero's Class B suddenly spoke. It seems like he also became a commentator. All Might explained from the side. It's too much. This guy named Baekwon Su Yuan is too much. If this section of the desert road had not been used, my Class B would have been promoted even more. The head teacher of Class B looked very ugly. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.